Let's get ready to rumble! You can't handle the truth.
And stay right here for our continuing coverage on the war in Ukraine.
And a little bit of chicken fried, cold beer on a Friday night, a pair of jeans that fit just right, and the radio.
Get 5 boneless wings for $1 with any handcrafted burger. Only at Applebee.
Ah, yes. War brought to you only the way corporate media in the U.S. can bring it to you, with profits. Because, you know, when you're sitting there watching death and carnage, you might actually think, man, I wish I had some chicken wings right now. And what could be better than a really cringy ad from Applebee's with a fat guy in a pair of Wranglers wiggling his butt in my face telling me, hey, I can get dollar wings. Yeah, there's nothing cringe about that whatsoever. Now, in all fairness to Applebee's, they don't decide ad displacement within the context of CNN news coverage. In fact, Applebee's immediately issued an apology and said that they would be putting their advertising with CNN on hold for a little while. CNN was forced to come out and apologize as well, and basically said that maybe putting the commercial inside the actual coverage of the war in Ukraine was not an optical look. You think? So for those of you that are listening to this on radio and not actually seeing this on my channel, so CNN was showing coverage of what's going on in Ukraine, which, by the way, is... Anyway, I'll get to that in a minute. So you're hearing the air raid sirens, the camera is panning the city, and then all of a sudden, inside that frame, in a smaller box, comes this Applebee's commercial with a fat cowboy wiggling his rear end and trying to get you to buy dollar hot wings when you buy any burger from Applebee's. Because, you know, war just tends to give you the munchies. This, on top of some other things that have been happening and unfolding over the past 48 hours, ought to let you know, are you starting to feel like something's off here? On the one hand, they want us to be motivated and inspired that this little nation of Ukraine, this little providence, is able to fend off Putin, and that Putin is frustrated, and this is mentally taxing on him, and he's dealing with war protests at home, and now the billionaire oligarchs within his own country are demanding that he withdraw and that there be peace, and he's had it. And we're getting reports that the soldiers from Russia, when they have entered into Ukraine, that they actually stop and ask people directions. And I have confirmed this through some missionaries I know serving in Ukraine, that yes, that has actually happened. And these soldiers are kind of wandering around bewildered. They're not even 100% sure why they're there or what's going on. And so you watch all this, and then of course you've got the president of Ukraine, Kalinsky, something Zinsky, is out there, you know, and he's got his battle fatigues on, and he's in the thick of the battle. Now stop and get the irony here. A government which was the result of a coup installed by Barackmas Obama, the alleged 44th president of the United States. And this guy got elected as a byproduct of that coup, that fake government that was put in place in a country which has been unanimously named as the most corrupt nation in Europe, is Ukraine. The most. And that they're ranked 9th in the world for corruption. So here they've got Zelensky, this stand-up comedian who is now a president. Is that not just an incredible irony, to just let you know, when you have a joke regime put into power by none other than the United States, because, we want to step into the business of sovereign nations and determine what type of government they have. But if Russia does it, oh no, that's an act of war. Now, before you think I am a Putin apologist, because after all, I don't want Chunk Yogurt calling me a racist. Chunk Yogurt, sometimes known as Cenk Uygur, the founder and face of the Young Turks, tweeted out that this defense of Putin is by nothing more than, well, white racists. Right wing doesn't love Putin just because he's an authoritarian. He's a tyrannical leader. They love him because he's a white authoritarian leader. Race has become more important than nationality. They've turned on democracy and now even America in favor of a white warlord. This coming from a guy who built his YouTube channel first on looking at the crotches of famous women, and he and his co-host, Anna Kasparian, there's something I want to say right there so bad, but I'll try to remember I am a pastor and I won't give in to that temptation. They would do almost like a hoochie-coo watch, and especially if a female celebrity, flashed one for the cameras, they would literally talk about it, judge it. Yeah, that's the level of the depth of intellect that we're dealing with Chunk Yogurt. To tweet that out, first of all, he does understand that what's happening between Russia and Ukraine is white on white, right? This isn't the white warlord coming in and crushing the oppressed minority. He is able to reason that out, I would hope. First of all, there's absolutely zilch proof for that. This guy, who obviously doesn't have the intellect of a junior high school student and probably couldn't pass a junior high civics or social studies class if his life depended on it, and he's a failed candidate for Congress from, of all places, California, which will elect any type of fruit or nut, but even they weren't having any of Chunk Yogurt. He just says these things and it becomes fact because there is a large segment of the progressive left that listened to this guy who himself is a corporate sellout and took millions of dollars, and so he's really not quote unquote progressive. He's bought and paid for now. He is just more controlled opposition for the Democrats. He's never met a Democrat he wouldn't vote for, support, or campaign for. That's Chunk Yogurt, the total complete fraud and a sellout, of course. But to just make this, and of course this is in direct response to how dare Tucker Carlson actually provide some context in not defending Putin. And some people have called me a Putin apologist. I'm not defending Putin, but I am trying to put things into a perspective, into an understanding of why does Putin feel like he has a reason to do this. Well, if you do that, of course, that now makes you a white supremacist. You're a racist. Again, this is white on white. This is not about race. And to say now that the right wing has turned its back on democracy, hello, is that a right wing guy that took away everybody's rights in Canada? Has it been red state governors that have oppressed and suppressed people? Was it Donald J. Trump that placed all types of national mandates on the citizenry? Or was that the duly appointed, installed Joe Biden? So who is it that's turned their back on democracy? Who is it that pleads and wants big tech to censor and censure and remove voices like mine? Are those calls coming from the right or from people like you, Sink? And by the way, don't you dare lecture me on warlords and violence, etc., 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 when you name your group, the Young Turks, after genocidal maniacs. And don't even try to go down that false, fake, revisionist history that you try to tell people when you try to rewrite the history. It's bullhock. You have named yourself after genocidal maniacs, and you yourself are a maniac. You're not a stable individual. And no, I would never want to be in the same room as you because you're not wrapped tight all the way. So this is what we've got now. You can't say anything bad about the regime of Ukraine. We know that they worked to try to oust Donald J. Trump with a coup. And again, I am not defending Putin. But why is it now that all of a sudden oligarchs and the billionaires of Russia want Putin gone? What is it that all of a sudden now the globalists of the world have united against Vlad Putin? All right, for you students of Bible prophecy, did you know that 250,000 Jews living in Ukraine 3 weeks ago wanted to immigrate to Israel? Biblically speaking, do we have a regathering taking place here? Now, some of you who aren't into Bible prophecy, you're going to laugh that off. And that's fine. That's okay. But I'm just asking questions right now. What is it that all of a sudden the globalists have united against Putin? Because in the end, you can't have a one-world governmental system if you've got any leader of any nation who is a nationalist. And no, we're not talking about a Hitler type of nationalism that they tried to throw on to Donald Trump. But any leader who believes in the sovereignty of his own nation and wants to make his nation great, he got go. That's what happened to Donald J. Trump. He got go. He's not part of the one world globalist system. By the way, neither's Putin. And think about it. Think who we're cheering for now. We're cheering for the underdog, Ukraine, which literally has neo-Nazis in their government and who make up their army. Literal neo-Nazis. That's not hyperbole. That's not exaggeration. That is the truth. We're cheering for the neo-Nazi army with the stand-up comedian president and his battle fatigues out there on the street. Somebody said to me, I bet Donald Trump, if Washington were under attack, wouldn't be out there. The only reason Zelensky, Yavensky, Karpinski, whatever ski is out there is simply because he knows it's okay. I have talked to people who are there who have said things like, well, we see the rockets going overhead, but we don't ever actually hear any explosions. In fact, to be honest with you, there is a channel here on YouTube where you can actually watch live, nonstop coverage of what's happening in Ukraine. It's 4 cameras. It's a split screen. You're watching 4 screens at once. You can actually, quote, watch the war. I better run out and get some Applebee chicken nuggets for that then. But you can actually watch the war. And the amazing thing is when I've tuned into it, traffic is moving normally. People are getting on and off buses and they're going in and out of stores. It looks kind of eerily normal. Now, when you watch the coverage on CNN and PMSNBC and even faux pas news, formerly known as Fox News, we get a narrative, we get propaganda. I'm not saying that there haven't been some explosions. I'm not saying that there haven't been casualties. I'm not saying that some bad things haven't happened. But when I watch this coverage, things look fairly normal. When I talk to individuals and hear that, yeah, we're seeing the rockets go overhead, but they're not really, hitting anything, and we don't hear any explosions. And there's numerous reports now, and some of this is kind of funny, that the soldiers themselves from Russia are actually knocking on the doors of people's homes and asking for directions, because one of the things Ukraine did was they took down all the road signs, which it's kind of clever, actually. And so there are tanks that are abandoned by the roadside by Russia because, well, they don't have any gas. Now, what does all that mean? Is Putin really, they want to try to paint him now as he's mentally off and he's backed himself into a corner. I think Putin himself got duped. He went into this thinking he had support that he does not have. I think he got baited into this. He got goaded into this, part of it by Mr. Biden himself. I think he thought he had support among his own cabinet and sphere of influence and governance, and now they've all yanked the rug out from under him. There's all types of sanctions now hitting him. Countries are turning away from using his fuel, and the oligarchs of the world, the deep state, the globalists have said, no, you're too pro your own country. You're not one of us. You gotta go. And think about it. We're cheering for the underdog that's using neo-Nazis, is corrupt. Putin, yeah, I understand he's ex-KGB, he's an old commie. He wanted to put the commie states back together again, but he actually believes in God. He's allowed the gospel to be fairly open there, and take it for what it is. One of the things that they hate about Putin in the world press is the fact that he's the anti-LGBTQ agenda. So that's the guy we're now rooting against, the one who believes in God and kind of believes in this traditional thing of men and women and traditional marriage and traditional homes. That's what we're now rooting against. Let that sink in. But Putin is a creation. The evilness, the quote-unquote evilness of Putin, it's a creation in this sense, and it's unbelievable that Bill Maher actually nailed this the other night. Now, he was doing a setup for Democrats. You need to reach out to Republicans because Trump has lost his hold over them. I don't know what you're smoking before you went on air, Bill, but that is not true. Not even close to being true. You didn't know CPAC happened this weekend, right? You do know that Trump won the CPAC poll by like a landslide. It was, I mean, he beat the guy who came in second, Ron DeSantis, by 30 points. So Trump is nowhere near done. You can wet dream that all you want, Bill, but that is really not the case, not happening, not know how. So, but he was doing this setup as to Democrats, instead of constantly insulting Trump supporters, they need to be welcoming, that we can have a normal, love that word, normal Democrats and Republicans again. And so he went on this little illustration that was actually a good illustration, but he used it incorrectly, so I'm going to help Bill Maher use it correctly.
Abraham Lincoln did when he said after the Civil War, with malice toward none, with charity for all. He didn't humiliate them. He told his generals, let them go home. Let them have their horses to plow with and their guns to shoot crows. Lincoln's approach was the one Truman adopted after World War II, and today Germany and Japan are peaceful, prosperous allies. Similar policies were instituted in South Africa after apartheid and Rwanda after the genocide there. It is a lesson Woodrow Wilson forgot at the end of World War I when the Allies chose to humiliate Germany and gave the world Hitler. It's a lesson that perhaps America forgot when the Soviet Union fell, and we continued to treat Russia as an enemy to be contained and not a new friend to be welcomed in.
See, the deep state, the globalists, they have always had to have the boogeyman. That's how they united all the other countries together, the boogeyman. And now that they feel that they have fairly successfully got everybody on the globalist agenda, everything from woke politics to climate change to all of it, that everybody's on board. All but this one little upstart in Russia. So now they've decided he got to go, and they really have now magnified him as the boogeyman. I think the reason that the Russian army is being pushed back right now is they went into this not fully understanding what it was they were getting into, and I think Putin thought that there was something in place that this was going to happen relatively quickly, and this would be kind of an annexing, kind of like he did with Croatia. And I think he got some bad intel. I think he got led astray by some of his own people, and he certainly got dared and goaded into this. And again, I'm not on any stretch of the imagination, a Putin apologist. He is what he is. He's an old commie. He's a KGB guy. And yeah, he wants to thump his chest and be the biggest kid on the block. Got it. What he doesn't get is the fact that even within his own country now, the globalists have taken control, and the one world order is well on its way to ousting him and any leader that dares to stand up for their individual country. Because again, in Kiev, you got a comic saying, we're a sovereign nation. Do you not get the sick, twisted, dark joke that is? That is the globalists laughing at the rest of us.